And just a little background, Jessica Ericson and Jasmine Saxon started their own company, Community Connections LLC, to use archaeology to bring communities together. Since the company's inception in 2019, they have collaborated with Red Rocks Park, an amphitheater, Foothills Art Center, local historical societies, and several nonprofits. Jasmine Saxon grew up in Maryville, Tennessee, and eventually found her way to Denver, where she received her MA in anthropology with a concentration in archaeology from the University of Denver in 2018. Through a number of experiences working with the community, Jasmine became passionate about public archaeology. Community Connections was founded to bring archaeology to local communities and to assist them with preserving the history that they find valuable. Jasmine lives with her partner and their English Mastiff in Denver. She loves to travel, cook, eat new foods, read fantasy novels, and spend as much time outside as possible. Jessica, in the green, was born and raised here in Pueblo. She's a former PAHS member, as a matter of fact. She received her undergraduate degree in anthropology from Colorado State University in 2014. Upon graduating, she knew she wanted to bring archaeology to the masses. So while she jumped from archaeology project to project, she also ran tours for museums and adventure companies. Community Connections LLC is the perfect platform for her love of archaeology and inspiring everyone around her to love archaeology also. Please welcome Jasmine and Jessica.
We're still concerned here.
It would have to always be that.
Yeah.
Ready.
This magic thing would work.
Oh,
I've had this problem before. I don't think so.
yay.
We'll try. The young ones that figure this stuff out. All right, you got yours. You got yours.
Got this one. This is backwards. Okay. Trying to stand in front of the computer at first to introduce ourselves, then we'll be moving around. So hold on. So thank you for having us, everybody. Today, obviously, as Doug just said, we're Community Connections, Jasmine and Jessica. We'll be talking about how we use archaeology to bring communities together. Okay, so we're going to discuss who we are, what we do. We'll give you 3 different projects as an example of what we do and our vision for the future. And of course, again, thank you so much for having us. Real quick, if anybody has any questions, we'll save that for the end. So just a heads up for that. So as Doug just said, my name is Jessica, and I first heard about Pueblo Archaeological and Historical Society from one of my anthropology classes at Pueblo Community College. So I've been coming here on and off since I think I was 19 years old, so it's been a while. But yeah, so I used to love rocks when I was little. I would follow my parents around with the largest shirt that I could find, and I would collect rocks on our walks that we would go on. So ever since I was young, I loved geology and history and all of that. So I got interested from a young age. And my favorite part of archaeology, I would have to say, is twofold. It's the community aspect. Archaeology has a huge community around it. It's such a small world. Everybody knows everybody. And then the second part of what I love about archaeology is when you're doing field work and you're actually able to pick something up that someone from so long ago dropped or left behind or buried or something. It's just like such a connection to the past. So I've loved archaeology for a long time, and I love to eat quesadillas. My favorite color is green. I love hanging out with friends and family, and I live with my boyfriend, 2 dogs, a cat, and an axolotl up in Denver. So that's me. This is Jasmine.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Jasmine Saxon, and I grew up in Tennessee, as you heard in our bio earlier. And through a roundabout series of events, I got down here to Denver, graduated with my master's degree. And so how I really got interested in archaeology was there's this program. I was 12 going on 13. And there's this program called People to People. Has anyone ever heard of this? People to People? Okay. I don't even know if it's around anymore. But People to People it was like an ambassador program for like younger, like middle school, early high school age type kids. And it was a process you had to go through. You had to like write this essay. You had to go through an interview and all these things. I think I ended up getting the key of the city. Like when I was chosen, which was like a big deal, but I didn't really understand like why. I was like, I remember asking my mom, like, what do I do with a key? Like, I don't know. So I ended up getting accepted into the program, and what would happen is we would become ambassadors to a fellow country. And so the countries that I got to visit were England, Ireland, and Wales. And you can imagine at 12 years old, that's a pretty big experience for a 12-year-old. And so not only did we get to go see all the castles, I got to kiss the Blarney Stone, like all these really cool things, but I also got to stay with host families. So one of my like most impactful memories is going to school with a girl named Karen. I remember her name, Karen Beanie was her name. But I got to go to school with her for the day and got to sit in her classes and see how it all worked. And so they really immersed you into the culture. And I just fell in love. My brain was like busted wide open. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a whole big world out here. And so I came back home and told my parents how excited I was about this. And they were like, cool, this is really neat. Yeah. And my dad, being the wise man that he is, found a subscription to a kids archaeology magazine called Dig. And so he signed me up for that. And I remember I was just so excited. Like I would check the mailbox like every week. I don't remember when it like came monthly or weekly or what, but it was like the highlight of my time was to grab that magazine and like learn about the next Roman coins that they found, you know, or whatever it was. And so I remember at the age of 12, like being at lunch with my friends and telling them, I'm going to be an archaeologist when I grow up. And of course they like look at me and they're like, what the heck is an archaeologist? And I'm still getting that question to this day. So we're doing good. But I absolutely love to be at the beach. You put me on a beach with some water and some sun and a fruity drink, and I am the happiest person alive. That is my happy place, is the beach. And I love to be outside. So I love to hike. I love to camp. I love to garden. And I love to eat lots of really good food. But yeah, I live in West Denver with my husband, and we have an English Mastiff. And so that's a little bit about me. So we're going to talk just a little bit about community connections and what we actually do. So there's we've broken up into 3 different areas of specialization. Our first one is project design. We have creativity and interpretation, and then specialized services. So with project design, kind of like what it sounds like exactly, we take a project from the very beginning stages and we work through the whole thing. So for example, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater, we have taken that project. We did all the historical research background in the beginning that we could, doing survey still in the middle of that, and then taking all of that information and using it to create content for community engagement purposes. So that may look like education material, outreach activities, things like that. So that's kind of an example of project design and what we do there. Our next one, creativity and interpretation. This is more along the lines of, for example, we made a obsidian course for kids out of South Park site stewards. And so you can see that's a little screenshot right here from our website. And then this is Jess and I at the South Park Site Stewards Archaeology Day. So we helped them put together a little informational course on some obsidian that they have sourced within the park. And then we actually showed up in Fair Play, which was like, it was such a great event. But there were tons of booths there. And we had one of them to talk to the kids about how obsidian was made. So that's kind of an example of some of our creativity and interpretation projects. And then the last one, specialized services. For example, so Lakewood Historical Society is they have wonderful people over there. We love working with them. But they have come up with this really cool idea. I don't know if you all have heard about the turf replacement program in Denver or in Colorado, but it's this program that they're launching across the state to help with xeriscaping. So looking at having more green ways of doing landscaping and low water plants that are more native to our environments. So what this is people are starting to tear up their yards now to do this, and you get credits and things like that for doing this xeriscaping. But Lakewood has some cool history there. And so people are starting to find artifacts when they pull up their yards. So Lakewood Historical Society wants to capture that information, that history. And so we're helping them launch a really cool program where we're making everyone citizen archaeologists in their backyard. And we're gonna help create a little guide for them to talk about, like, if you find nails or glass, is it window glass? Is it vessel glass? And so we're empowering locals in Lakewood to really take a hold of this history and to personalize it and to build a database about Lakewood and its history. So that's kind of a specialized project that we're doing with them. So Jess is going to launch into the Astor House, which is one of our example projects that we're going to share with you.
Yeah, I realize that I'll probably just stand here. It's easier for people to see. Okay, so the Astor House. Has anybody heard of the Astor House here at all? Katie. Yes, Katie, of course, yes. She was involved with a lot of it. So the Astor House is based in Golden, Colorado. Yeah, it's very unique. It's a very unique situation. So the Astor House was built in 1867. That guy right here, Seth Lake, bought the property, built the Astor House, and at the time it was the only brick establishment or stone establishment in the city for a hotel for people to stay at. All the other ones were made of wood and they had infestations. It would burn down very easily. So this was the place to stay. Obviously his name is Seth Lake, no Astor House connections. He just wanted to have a prestigious name associated with his hotel. So that was the only reasoning. But he was a very wonderful man. The town loved him. And so for the first 2 or 3 years, I think, he would put 36 ads in the newspaper a week for people to stay at his place. So it was booming. Once he sold it, there were some people who moved in and like owned it for a while, but it wasn't until after that, I think, what was it, 18, basically, I'd have guessed this woman over here, she came in and she took it over and revamped everything. She added a 3rd floor. She took the back, she added additions into the back. She partnered with the School of Mines and the students started coming, like walking over, it's within walking distance. Students would start coming over and she would start, serving them, and the whole football team would practice in the backyard. So the backyard is very important because out of almost anywhere in Golden, that's the only place that hasn't been dug up. So I'm bringing that up for a specific reason, but the city of Golden owns the Astor House and they didn't know what to do with it because around 2015, it's just been sitting dormant. The entire inside had been gutted. There was asbestos, there was foundation issues. It was a whole thing. So for about 8 years, it had just been sitting there and nobody really knew what to do with it. Some people had suggested a beer museum. There was some random suggestions. But finally Foothills Art Center stepped in and asked if they could rent it and use the property, revamp it completely to be an extension of the Foothills Art Center. So with community support and many people helping, they decided to give Foothills Art Center a chance. So this is what the architects are envisioning. So the groundbreaking was in May. It's in full process right now. This entire back portion is where the backyard is. And so they're building on and they're adding so much to it, and it's going to be a really great space. But let's see, look at the next slide. Okay, so this is what the backyard looked like before. And now if you go by there, I just drove by there about 3 days ago, it's a huge hole in the ground. So thank goodness archaeologists were able to come in. Denver Museum of Nature and Science, Amy Gillespie, several like Metcalf, different firms came in, and there was a huge push to excavate several units in the backyard. So that happened. It took 3 weeks. They found 20,000 artifacts just in 6 units in the backyard. So there was a lot going on back there, and someone is still monitoring back there during the construction. And then you can see here too, this is what the inside looks like. I mean, it was completely gutted. So yeah, it's a very, very unique space. Everything has been kind of Frankensteined in, built over the years. So, all right, these are some of the artifacts they found. So these are some of the students. There's Amy and Jean Wheaton. They're excavating right there. They found tons of nails and pieces of glass. This is a Chinese a Ren coin from the Qing Dynasty. This is a Army of the Republic Civil War pen. This is very random. This is a Pelican Lake point. That's from Canada, and it's really old. So it just shows, all of this shows the diverse amount of people that were here and the amount of trade that was happening throughout the area as well. So here's some of the bone that was found. And this is just in one little area. This is just some of the bone. A lot of it's sheep and lamb and some cattle, but all of the metal and the glass that is not diagnostic is being given to Foothills Art Center. So the artists can come in and they're going to use that as stuff that they can actually work with and turn into art pieces and things. So they're completely revamping it all. It's really cool. So overall, there were about 12 partners that collaborated on this. Jasmine and I were called in to do the public portion, more or less. So we developed a tour to lead people on. And we also started a social media campaign 1 month prior to the event. So we talked about Astor House like nobody's business. Our family was sick of it. Our friends were sick of it. But we were trying to push it really hard because it was such an important project to the city of Golden. It was Foothills Art Center hosts Arts Week in June, and Arts Week was on Saturday and Sunday. And in those 2 days during COVID, we had just under 200 people attend our tours. So it was phenomenal. It was so awesome. We were so thankful. Those were all free, hosted by the city. And then we did lead one additional tour for the Colorado Council of Professional Archaeologists as well. And that was a great turnout as well. There was about 12 of us. Okay, so tours, this is what the tours look like. So that's Jasmine leading the tours on the inside, trying to give the same vision that we're talking about now. And the results, people absolutely loved it. They loved the historic, we sent out a survey and 15 people responded. But out of those 15, we got a lot of good data. They said that they would absolutely take a historical tour specifically again. And most people were 30s to 40s in the Denver area, and they wanted more. So it was really cool to see. Yeah, so the Astor House, like I said, it's being revamped and it should be open by August of this year. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
And Jasmine will take on from here.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so we're going to talk about Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater. I hope all of y'all have been to Red Rocks. Has anyone not been to Red Rocks? Okay, well, you better get out there. It is absolutely phenomenal. I'm probably biased because Jess and I have the privilege and the blessing to be working out there. But I'm telling you guys, it's magical. There's nothing quite like being out there among these giant red rocks. Makes you feel about this small in just the most amazing way. So here on the left-hand side, this is actually before the amphitheater was built. So you'll notice Creation Rock and Shiprock. These are the two big rocks that align the theater that you see, that the amphitheater that we have built now. So if you were standing below the amphitheater and like looking up towards it, this is where you'd see the back of the amphitheater right here. So it's a cool picture to see what it looked like before. This is Jess and I just having the time of our life. Okay. Archaeology is so fun. And then this is just a really cool picture that we got from, we were hiking way up into these red rocks where we thought no one could get to, but we'll talk about that in a second. And so we've got some cool pictures here. So how, a little bit of history about red rocks. So in the beginning, we know historically that pre-contact peoples were here for thousands and thousands of years. But in late 1800s, John Brisbane Walker Sr. Was some white dude that came into this place and was like, holy moly, this is like, wow. And so he was like, listen, we got to get people out here. I want to share this with everyone. So he, from an early time on, had this vision of creating a tourist attraction out of this area. And so he began that process. They started building roads and things like that. He actually personally purchased this property. So he was kind of out there doing his own thing. And then he ended up passing away before this whole idea of tourism came to be at Red Rocks. It was a long process of development there. Eventually, the city of Denver was able to come in and buy this property. And then we have George, I think it's George Cranmer. Let me make sure I got that name right. Let's see here. Yeah, George Ernest Cranmer came in, and he was the one that had the vision for the amphitheater. So this is such, I love this picture because this is the amphitheater that Mr. Cranmer saw that inspired him to build Red Rocks. So him and his family were out taking a nice little family vacation in Italy. Wouldn't that be nice right now? And he came across this amphitheater, and he was just blown away by how beautiful it was. And while they were there, there was actually some theater practice, somebody was practicing. And so he actually got to hear the acoustics, and he's like, we should build this at Red Rocks. And so this is the exact theater that he got his inspiration from. In addition to that, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of people involved in creating all the infrastructure, the roads and everything in Red Rocks. But two of the main players in this were people from the CCC camp. So the city of Denver was able to convince the federal government that this was a worthy project for the CCC camp workers to come out and do. And so pretty much all of the infrastructure, a lot of the roads, the amphitheater, all of that was built by these men. And that was between about 1935 and 1943, they were there doing work at Red Rocks. The other major player was the WPA. They also did a lot of work there with building the roads and the drainage systems and things like that. So this is a little plaque just honoring the CCC camp here. And you can actually see these from the upper parking lot. Right before you walk into the amphitheater, they've got this statue and these plaques here. And then this plaque here on the right is the National Historic Landmark plaque, and it was established as a National Historic Landmark in 2015. And then in 1990, it was already listed as on the National Register of Historic Places. So it's got both of those. Let's see. The other thing about Red Rocks is that it actually has never been inventoried culturally, archaeologically. And so that was astonishing to us when we found that out. We're like, wait, how many millions of people go through Red Rocks every year and no one knows what's in this park? Like, that's a problem. To thinking about the impact, thinking about protecting protecting artifacts, sites, things like that. If we don't know they're there, we can't protect them. And this Red Rocks is a huge high impact area. Like I said, millions of people. I think we just had a meeting the other day, and I think she said like 6 to 8 million people every year come to Red Rocks. That's a ton of people. And so how Justin and I were able to get into this project, so I graduated from DU with my master's, and I'm still very much connected to DU. And Dr. Bonnie Clark is one of my former mentors and professors. And she was contacted by the director, Shannon Dennison, for Mountain Parks, because Shannon has a background, which is really cool, in historic preservation and archaeology. So she found out that this park hasn't really been, nothing really archaeological has been done here. And so she kind of wrangled her friend Bonnie and was like, hey, like, come check this out. Like, do we have archaeology here? What's going on? And so Bonnie started doing some digging, and she found a little tiny note card that had a just few lines of information on it from 1933, and they had found a rock shelter. And so we're like, what? And so while all of this is happening and going on, I find out there's a campus dig going on. And I was like, that's cool. I'm going to stop by and just say hi to the peoples. And so I walked by and did a little digging and stuff. And I started talking to Bonnie, and she's like, hey, we're going out to Red Rocks to find this rock shelter. You want to come? I was like, yeah. Are you kidding me? Absolutely, I want to come. So I wrote Jessica in, and we went out a couple summers ago now, actually. That's wow. Time goes so quickly. And we were able to record this rock shelter with a class of undergrad students. Barney has a historical archaeology class that she teaches. And so she actually needed a project for them to learn how to record things. And so she needed some help as well. So Justin and I got out there, and we were able to do all that with them. And that led to some really cool conversations between us, Bonnie, and Shannon. And Shannon really was like, if this is here, what else is in this park that we don't know about, right? So we were chosen, if you will, to take this project on. And it wasn't just because we're archaeologists. Like, any archaeologist can come and do this, right? The special thing about this is that we are community facing. So everything that we do with this project is going to be given back to the community in some form or fashion. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. So let's talk about survey. What did we find? All right. So we found one pre-contact site and 11 historic sites. And this is just for the upper northern portion of the park. All right, so we still have a lot more to cover. But out of that, we were shocked actually of the lack of pre-contact items. Like, we're just like, where are they? I mean, we would hike up into these areas where it just feels there should be things there, and there's not. So that tells you something too, right? It tells you about how people are using the landscape, where people are going, if people are picking up things and putting them in their pocket. But the historic things that we found were pretty cool too. Obviously, people have been hanging out at Red Rocks for over 100 years, more so, thousands of years to be technical. But what we really see is a representation from the late 1800s, early 1900s on into current day. So this is one of the oldest artifacts, historic artifacts, that we found here, which is amethyst glass. And if anyone knows anything about amethyst glass, you know that it dates to the late 1800s, early 1900s. And the reason that it's purple is because it was clear at one time, but during that time, it didn't have all the technology that we have. And so they would use a chemical called manganese that would make the colorless, or make the glass colorless. But when that chemical sits out in the sun, it interacts with the sun and it turns it purple. So the more purple, the darker purple it is, the more chemical it has in it, and the longer it's been sitting out. So that's what this is right here. And this is our survey crew. Yeah. So we had Amy Gillespie, which you heard her name earlier in the Foothills Art Center project. So she's here. And then this is Gunnar. One of our former coworkers that we worked with, hired him on for a little bit. So we had a blast, as you can see. So Jess and Gunnar recorded the only pre-contact site that we found. And this is a quartzite.
Biface thinning flake.
Biface thinning flake. This is not my specialty, I'm learning. And this is a petrified wood biface fragment. And that's kind of the coolest things that we found that were pre-contact. So, yeah. So we're really hoping that as we continue on this work, that we'll continue to document more and more of this pre-contact period. So this is the sherd that we found. This is what it came from. So what I love about this artifact is, you guys, I spent probably 4 to 5 hours looking at 7-Up bottles, trying to figure out what this goes to, because I could tell it said Colorado right there. I've figured out this is the back of the 7-Up bottle. So where it says you like it likes you right here. Yeah. And then content 7 fluid ounces, right? Okay. So you go on down and guess what? It was made in Denver, Colorado. How cool is that? Awesome. I loved it. When I found this, I literally called Jess. I was like, because so actually they have this whole series of this 7-Up bottle, and I should have gotten a picture of the front, but it's like this little like pinup girl kind of thing on the front. And they made them like there's like a specialty thing that they made them throughout various locations across the nation. So actually the one that says Denver, Colorado is pretty cool to find. All right. And the other cool artifact we wanted to show you guys is this sheath knife. It is from the Western Knife Company. And they were started in Boulder, Colorado in 1911. And you can see up here, these are some of their embossing that they would do on their blades. And it obviously it's changed over time. In 1984, they were bought by Coleman here. But if you can't really see it, it's very hard to see, but there's a little embossing right here. And what that says is Western Boulder, Colorado. Cool. So we're thinking this dates from about 1928 to 1931. So it's pretty neat, like that. This one too is also one of my babies I was so proud of. So this is the sherd that we found. This is what it comes from. So this is a colorless Pepsi Cola bottle. And as you can see, like the colorless glass has kind of this straw tint to it. So that also speaks to how they were using certain chemicals that weren't quite the perfection that we have now to make this colorless. But I've actually never seen a colorless Pepsi bottle like this before. It dates to the 1940s. So I thought that was really cool because literally all we have is this PSICO with some kind of embossing here. So the fact that we were able to piece it together is pretty cool. This is why I love archaeology. How cool is this? You guys like puzzles? I do. All right. So our results. So like I said, there's about 649 acres of Red Rocks property. It's a lot. It's a big area. But out of those 649, there's about 230 acres that are able to be surveyed. And the reason because of that is there's a lot of slope. There's super thick vegetation that you just literally cannot get through as a human. There are parking lots, there's structures, there's things like that. So we went through and we took out all of that we couldn't survey, and we're left with about 230, and that's just an estimate. It could be less. So during our 2 weeks of survey, we covered about 83 acres and a ton of elevation. We were climbing all over the place. It was so cool. And then obviously this is going to be a multiple year project, right? So every season we're going to go out, we're going to cover as much as we can in about a couple of weeks. And then we'll take all that information and we are going to make programming out of it. So we've partnered with the wildlife coordinator as well as the education coordinator at Red Rocks or the Denver Mountain Parks. And they're helping us with creating content for Denver Public Schools, for rec center classes for kids. So they have all the know-how of the education part and we have all the content. So we're going to work together to continue pushing programming out that talks specifically about archaeology at Red Rocks. If you've been to archaeology or been to Red Rocks, there's really nothing about archaeology there. Like there's some, if you go up the geologic trail, there's like a panel that talks about John Brisbane Walker and George Cranmer, but there's no, hey, like, people have been using this area for thousands of years and things like that. And so we really want to develop that and let people know that, yeah, Red Rocks is an amazing place. People have been coming here for so long. They still continue to come here. This is a little memorial that we found while we were surveying. It's modern. We didn't record it, but we wanted to just document it for the park staff so they could do what they need to do with it. And then like this, so strange. And we found it in this crazy area. Like we had to hike up these like vertical, like super slopey slabs. And Jess is over here like, I'm getting vertigo. And I'm like, it's okay. And we get up there and it was crazy. It was like this, like where the water had kind of carved out a tunnel in the Red Rocks. And there was a little like landing kind of area beside it. And you could tell people had just hiked up there to like hang out. And there was modern stuff like this. And then there was also aqua glass and amethyst glass. So, like people have been coming here for a long time. So the other thing is, does anyone know what this is?
Probably, yeah, like,
What? Tape player?
yeah.
I don't know. Like this looks like a speaker kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Transistor radio. Okay. We thought, I mean, it's what? Yeah. Bronze age. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if y'all like have any, like, you're like, I know exactly what that is, email us. We're just kind of. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send you the photos. Yeah, for sure. We were thinking it's some sort of, yeah, radio or something. It's got a plug right here. So intercom. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so anyway, we were just like, hey, maybe they'll know what this is. So that's a little bit about what we're doing at Red Rocks to incorporate archaeology as a tool into the community so that everyone can participate in this historical narrative and storytelling. So the last project we're going to talk about is called Donkey Kong, and Jess is going to lead you through that one.
Okay, yeah, I know this is a weird name. But the reason it's called Donkey Kong, the man who bought the property, so it is, this is the property boundary right here. It's in Pueblo County, and he thought it looked like Donkey Kong characters. So
Yeah,
that's why
and it's huge.
Yeah. So he named it that, and we ran with it. So that is what we have been doing most recently. So we did this project in October, the fieldwork portion of it. But so you can see here, we were staying, my parents still live here in Pueblo West, so we were staying with them. We did a survey of about 147 acres, and we found some really cool stuff. This is Jasmine here with what we think is a grill, and that's just an amethyst bottle. All right, this is super interesting. So the original homestead owners, this man's name was Charles E. Buffington, and he was in Pueblo, Colorado area in the early 1900s. So this here is him, his wife, his two kids, his brother Arthur, his wife Julia, and Helen. We were in the library for hours yesterday trying to learn more about the Buffingtons, and we found that they didn't have the greatest reputation around here. So, this is Arthur, Julia here. Apparently, he was accused of abducting her from Springs, taking her down to Pueblo to go to places of ill repute, and her father was very upset. But they ended up getting married and having a daughter, so I think it was more just a case of she ran away, and her dad was not happy with that, so understandably so. So yeah, there's other newspaper articles with this family, and they're here for a good 5-6 years, and then we couldn't find anything else about them, so we don't totally know what's going on there. Still more research to come, but yeah, super interesting. He was the original homestead owner. These are some of the artifacts we're finding there. We haven't been able to tie exactly if the we have not been able to tie any of the artifacts straight to the Buffingtons yet, but some of the artifacts, there's a site in the area that we found that is very large, and it has the most aqua glass and amethyst glass I've ever seen in one collection ever. So it's quite interesting. We're still doing research, like I said. This is a little wheel, and it's the bottom of an amethyst glass and some aqua glass. This is the other interesting part. This doesn't look big in this picture, but I could lay across here probably two of me. That's like a bed frame. There's a toolbox. That's a toolbox right there. There's historic trash everywhere. I mean, to be expected, it's farmland, we get it, but it's quite interesting with the deposition. So this is a prairie dog hole. There's sanitary can pieces coming out of it. So there's got to be a little bit of deposition going on. And so in order to do this project, we worked with the landowner and the State Historic Fund to get a grant to do the archaeology on the project. The main point of this project again, what we do is connect the community. So we're doing the archaeology in order to connect the community to be able to go out on this property, to go have kids do field schools and learn about the property, like specifically STEAM is what they call it now. So science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, mechanics,
Mathematics.
that one. That's not my expertise. So anyways, so yeah, so that's the whole point of what we got the grant for. So we found many things, and it's going to be really exciting to show kids what, like, anything that they dream up they can do. Like, you wouldn't expect going out on this dusty property that, like, there'd be so much like, you know, animals and plants and things that they could learn from. So that is that. And like I said, the community outreach, we did an event out on the property. Kids were out there, they were learning about just what different companies were doing. So we had our this is from the South Park Site Stewards volcano obsidian project that we did. And then we had some of the artifacts that we found near this tent that we put up on display. And then we want to take kids and people and everybody and just bring them out to see the stratigraphy, to see the different layering, the geology out there. It's dusty, but it's really cool. All right, so results. As Red Rocks is, this is also kind of an ongoing project. I put left in the dust because it was so dusty. But we found 4 historic sites, 8 isolated finds. The property itself is 475 acres, and we only got to 147 of those. So I'm sure there's probably more out there. We'll have to see. But they want to make this into a virtual space first, to have kids, since so many kids are online nowadays, it might just be easier first for the kids to come out, or, you know, get online, get a feel for what they'll be learning, and then actually do hands-on stuff when they're out there. So we have down here, like I said earlier, the original homestead owners just kind of up and left. And then if anybody has any stories along Highway 96, you should let us know. A lot of the property out there is all private property. So when we did the original file search, yeah, we came back with 2 sites and 3 surveys in the entire area. And most of those were done in the 60s. So not a lot has been done. But anyways, yeah. So if anybody knows anything about that, let us know, please. But that is what we're doing out in Pueblo County. And Jasmine's taking notes.
All right. So we're just getting started. This is just the very beginning of all the fun things that we're into. So we actually were passed the torch, if you will, to run International Archaeology Day this year. Pretty big deal, you guys. We're so excited about this. In 2022, we had over 20 different booths and vendors. We had 3 speakers, and we just are even more excited to continue to grow this. So if you haven't been out to International Archaeology Day, please come this year. We would love to see you. We are actually in conversation with Red Rocks right now to see if we can have it there, which would be so cool. So that's something we're taking on. And again, we're going to be doing more courses for kids. So South Park Obsidian is just an example, but we're going to be building out more educational programming that kids can just log on and for free and just learn about archaeology. Factor Earth is another one of our great partners. They have a website that you can get onto from your tablet or your phone. You can do your computer, but it's meant for you to move around within a 360 picture, right? So you pull up a picture and you can, like on your phone, you can move around within the picture as you move your phone, which is really cool. It creates a little immersive experience. And then within the picture, there are these little landmark points that you can hit, and it pops up and it'll tell you more about the historic site that you're looking at, give you old photos, things like that. It's all free to the public, which is amazing. It's an awesome resource. There are even lesson plans and things like that that go along with certain adventures, is what we call them. So we're continually adding on to that as well. And there actually is a Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater adventure that we're going to be recreating as we learn more about the archaeology at Red Rocks. So, and then we'll, in the spring, we'll be launching some more historical tours, which we're really excited about. That's Jess's passion and love. She loves to take people around and tell them about archaeology and history. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely keep us in mind this spring, as we'll be usually around the Metro Denver area. So if you guys are up there, look us up. And the last slide is just our contact information. So feel free to write that down, take a picture with your phone. But that is pretty much all we've got tonight. So thank you so much for
Thank you
being
all
here
so
with
much.
us.
Thank you, thank you.
And
thank you.
if y'all have questions, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That-
so he asked, just for people on Zoom, he asked that we use the word pre-contact, and what does that mean? Jess, you want to talk about it?
So usually, like, for a long time, we've been using prehistoric, but there's just a lot of debate of the correct term to use. And even some people I've heard don't like using pre-contact because that's, that's a thing. So we're just trying to get with the times and like trying to be more respectful to people who have been here longer than us.
Yeah, so prehistoric is probably what the term that you might hear or use.
Yeah.
And we're changing that out to pre-contact. So the contact period would be when Europeans come here to the US. And that's kind of when the historic time period starts, which we feel is a little bit disrespectful in a way that it's kind of discounts that there was history before we came. And so we really want to be respectful about these narratives and how we're presenting them. And so until we come up with a better word or something, this is kind of what we're going with, just to be respectful that we all have history here, not just the Europeans. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. Anyone else? Yes.
When is National Archaeology Day?
It will be sometime in October. We're deciding that very soon.
Yes.
It's usually the third weekend in October. Last year was October 15th, but there is the Plains Anthropological Society that happens pretty much at that same time. So if we want CRM and professional folks to come to International Archaeology Day, we might have to rotate the day, but yeah,
it'll be the third or fourth weekend in October for sure. So we're hoping to host it at Red Rocks.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. So we'll see. It's still in the works. Nothing's been decided yet. It's still pretty early on. We just had our first committee meeting, so we're getting the ball rolling. But if you guys want to keep up on that, definitely check back on our website. It'll all be hosted there, all the information and signups and things like that. So yeah. Anyone else? Good. Okay. Oh yeah.
If it's just the two of you, can you take on more projects?
Good question. So she asked if it's just the two of us, can we take on more projects? Honestly, yes and no.
Yeah.
So the reason we hired people last year, you saw in our survey crew, is that exact reason. It's just two of us. So we have the means to hire help if we need to. We have some really amazing partners that we work with. And so if we can't do it, we will find someone that can do it. Yeah. Yes.
What is the source of your revenue?
That's a good question too. Yeah.
What is the source of our revenue for those online?
Yes.
It's totally mixed. So we have private clients that pay us from their like Red Rocks private. We also have applied for grants. We have mixed things. I guess it's kind of like those main two.
Yeah, I think the main two would be private paying clients. And then a lot of our work does come either through grants or, like, for example, South Park Site Stewards, they applied for a grant and then they hired us to do the work. So I would say it's mostly those two things, especially with like historical societies, nonprofits, things like that. When we work with them, we do a lot more work with grants just because that avenue is open to them to get that funding. And we help writing that, we help write those, we help manage those. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yes, in the back.
Your tool you showed earlier looks like something from a late paleo tool.
Yes.
Is that a pejorative term, something like that?
Well, that's a great. So for the people online, he asked the Pelican joint that was shown earlier, if it's late paleo, if that's kind of a term that's out for now. From what I know, I have not heard if late paleo, I think that's still in, it's paleo equals old. So as far as I'm aware, paleo still works, and that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Do you have a card that has that information on it?
We can get that information to you. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have a card on us right now.
How or are you able to impact the educational system? In other words, if people didn't think archaeology was important, how are you able to either interface or interest or promote university or college level classes in archaeology? Are you able to, are you doing any of that, or do you get that opportunity?
Yeah, we're starting to. So kind of a long question, but for those online, we're just asked to how we're getting people basically excited, or if we are getting people basically excited within the universities or other school systems that may not know about archaeology at all.
I think
we are.
it's a mixed answer in a way, because we're definitely all about doing education and outreach and programming that impacts those communities. But at the same time, we're also an LLC, we're a business, and we have to make sure that we balance out some of those volunteer more activities with paying activities. And so I think a lot of that is really building kind of a network and relationships. So for example, Jess and I host archaeology meetup once a month from about October to March-ish on the off season of archaeology. And really there's no agenda to this. It's just a space for people to come in and meet and talk and mingle. And we have had some really amazing outcomes of that, just because people are getting together and they're meeting each other and they're building trust between each other. And so you start having these conversations about, oh, well, I'm a professor, like, how do I do this? Or, I'm a student and I'm in grad school, like, what happens if this happens to me? Or, and so I think a lot of impact that we can do is building this type of community where we have this open relationship with people and they can come to us and say, hey, we've got this cool idea. How do I make it happen? And so it's really more about us being in these spaces of connection and talking about what is needed and what is wanted. And almost always we've gotten the resounding that, like, there needs to be more resources for teachers and students and things like that. So part of the reason we're doing these virtual courses and we're on social media and doing all this is to continue to reach out our hand and be like, hey, we're here. What do you need? How can we help you? How can we meet you halfway? And so I think that's a hard question to answer overall. We're doing the best we can. And that's really why we started this business, is because of your question. How do we get people involved? How do we get them excited?
Yeah.
So we're constantly trying new things. If you have any suggestions, let us know.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what we found is networking. It's just,
There's also other entities out there that are already established, like Skype with a Scientist, different things like that. Everything's blanking right now, but I know there's many institutions out there. So we each have signed up for that several times. We've worked with classes before. We've tried to participate in the most beneficial way possible. But yeah, it's like, seriously, you have to get excited, then people get excited, and then everybody wants to do archaeology, but you just have to get to talk to a lot of people, and that's where networking and marketing comes in. So yes.
Those meetups in person or online?
In person.
We change it. So the meetups, she's asking about where do we meet with the meetups? They are in person, and we change the location every month around Metro Denver so that everyone gets an opportunity to go. So if you have someone way out in Aurora and we're holding it in Wheat Ridge, that's not maybe as a convenient location. So each month we choose a different location within Metro Denver so that it gives opportunity for everyone to kind of participate.
Which is hard to drive from Pueblo, obviously, and farther distances, but some people do come from really far away, so it just depends. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.